Hi, I'm Charlie Love and welcome to this Crow Enterprise tutorial with Apps, Events and Acer, and today it's all about mastering groups with GAM. So GAM, as you know from my previous videos, is a command line management tool for Google Workspace, and today we're going to focus in on how we can use that to manage and control our groups in Google Workspace. So let's get started. So we're going to create a group and we're going to use this example, which is for a field trip. The group's going to be called Year 12 Field Trip, and we've got a description there as well. So I'm going to jump into the Cloud Console, and here's my Cloud Console. I've already set up GAM in this console, so we'll just get started. So what I'm going to do is just add in my command, which is GAM create field trip, the group field trip. So that's going to be the name of the email of the group will be field trip at in this case demoworkspaceedu.com, and then you can see the rest of the information there about the group. So I'm going to create that group, and that's all I need to do to create it. Straightforward. It creates my field trip at demoworkspaceedu.com. So that's the group created. So far so good, relatively straightforward. Now what I want to do is show you that I can update that group, and I can update the information about it. What I can do is I can change the name of the group, and I can change the email of the group as well. GAM update group. Field trip is the current name of the group. The name of the group I'm going to change from Year 12 Field Trip to Edinburgh Field Trip. And the email, I'm going to change the email for the group to be what was previously Field Trip. I'm now going to change the email to be Edinburgh Field Trip at demoworkspaceedu.com. So now it's updated the group, and you can see it's now called Edinburgh Field Trip at demoworkspaceedu.com. So that's updating and renaming the group, and you can do the same to change the description if you want. You can also do things like allowing external members for that group if you wish, setting that to true or false. You can do that when you update the group as well. So let's talk about adding members and managers and owners to the group. So you've got multiple options for adding or syncing users to a group. You can sync individual users, no problem, or add individual users to the group. You can add the members of another group to your group, or you can actually add the email address for another group to your group. And in that case, the email that you send out to the group will be then go to that other group's mailing list. But if you add the group membership of another group, when you send out an email, it'll go to the individual members of that group. So there's a little bit of a difference there around how that works out for the user experience. You can add or sync users from an organizational unit, just that one organizational unit, not its children. Just one org unit that you've got set up, you can sync or add users from it. But equally, if you have in your hierarchy of organizational units in your Google Workspace domain, if you have an organizational unit and its children, you can sync to this group from everyone and the children and the child OUs as well. So an example there would be if your OUs were set up with the year of students, and then below that you had individual classes. If you added users from the year of students, all the users in the classes would also be synced or added to your group. You can add from a file. So if you've got a file containing email addresses, you can add from that file as well. And you can also just say all users in the domain. So all users are automatically added to the group. So those are your options around adding or syncing. And it's probably really important just now to tell you the difference between adding and syncing. If you add users to a group, you don't change the existing group membership. So you don't change who's in that group. And you're just adding to what's there already. But if you sync, what will happen is you are taking whichever point of truth, whatever source you have, and you are saying that's a source of users for this group. So when you sync, for example, you sync an OU and its children, those users who are in your group but are no longer in your OU and children will be removed from your group. So it's worthwhile just thinking, considering your group memberships and how they should be set up to make sure you're not removing people inadvertently if you sync your groups to a particular source. Okay, so let's go on and add some users to the group we've got. So in this case, we're going to use the add members, managers, owners to a group set of commands. And we've got some options here, some examples that we can go through. So the way this works is you can actually add multiple users in one command if you wish. You can chain the user command to add them. But what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to add users as we go through with some examples. So let's start by we're going to jump across the Cloud Shell, and in this case we're going to add a new manager. So in this case it's GAM update group, Edinburgh Field Trip, which is the name of our group. Add a manager. Digest means that this manager is just going to get a kind of a weekly digest from the group. They're not going to get all the mail all the time. They're going to get a digest of the mail all pulled together. So that's why I've used digest there. And I've said who the user is, and I've given their email address. So I'm going to add that user in, and that user becomes a manager for the group. Now, if I wanted to add another user, we're just adding as a member for the group. So this time what I'm going to do is add a member of the group, and this one's going to get no email. So I'm going to say no email means they have to go to the group page online and they have to view the messages there, but they're not going to get any email. So I can add that member to the group, and you see, notice I've said add member to that one. Now, as I mentioned previously, you can add the members of another group to your group by just adding the membership of that group. So for example, what's going to happen here is I'm going to update the group Edinburgh Field Trip. I'm going to add the group year 12 at demoworkspaceedu.com, and that will add the members of that group to my group, my Edinburgh Field Trip group, and it will go through, find those members and add them. I could also add the group email as a member. So in that case, I take out the group option and I say add member, and I add the group email address as a user. As well as adding from groups or adding individual users, I can also add from organizational units within the domain. I'm going to add from a class OU that I've created. And that's this command here in the example that I've got, which is GAM update group, Edinburgh Field Trip, add not suspended, OU, and then the path to the OU that I'm going to refer to. And what this will do is take all the members of that OU and add them to Edinburgh Field Trip group, but only if they are not suspended. So this is a way of saying if you've got suspended users in a OU, let's not add them to the group. So that's what it's going to do. So I'm just going to jump across to Cloud Shell, and now I'm going to run that command. So it's getting all the users in that OU, and it's now adding those users into that group. What I would like to do is I'd actually like to go and update the group membership by adding the OUs and children of another OU that I've got set up. So in this case, I've got one called School Demo Students. And what I want to do is jump across to Cloud Shell. And here, I'm just going to paste in that command again. GAM update group Edinburgh Field Trip. Add OU and children is the key one here, because OU and children will let me sync the top OU here and all the children, all the child OUs, all the users in those child OUs, everything will sync across to the group membership. So I just add them, and they'll just be added as members because I haven't specified another role. So it's probably worthwhile now to print out a list of who's in my group, so I've got an idea of what that looks like. So let's look at how we can get that information. So we just use GAM print group members. We've got option to print it to drive. We can specify domain. We can specify a particular member email. We've got some options there around that. We've got options around the fields that we can select. But I find this easier just to use the standard command, GAM print group members, and I'm going to start off by printing it to a file. So jump across here to Cloud Shell, and I'm going to run that. So this is showing me the people who are members of that group. So I've got this file here now, members, and here are the folks that are members of the group. Okay, so I've now got the group membership there, but I can also get it another way. I can equally send the group membership to Drive. So let's have a look at doing that. I'm just going to copy this command in GAM, print group members to Drive, group, Edinburgh field trip. And when I print to Drive, what I'll get at the end of that in GAM is I get a link through to Google Drive. And when I do that, of course, it opens in Sheets. And here I have my group, an ID for the users. I've got their email addresses. I've got their role within the group, as you can see here, and what type of user they are. And you'll notice this one is showing as a group user, so that's grand, and whether they're active as well. So we've got information there about folks that are in our group. Remember what I said before was syncing will actually sync the members, remove those who are not in your sync source, the source of your members. It will remove them, and it will only include the ones that you've got in your source. Remember, right now we have these 4 users in the group. What we're going to do now is we're going to go and change that by using sync. So what I'm going to be saying is GAM update group Edinburgh field trip sync with the OU school demo students. It's going to remove all the users who are not part of that OU. Now it's interesting here because in fact none of those users are in that specific OU, and you'll notice from the sync command that I used, in the command that I used, I said OU, and I didn't say OU and children. So what that means now is there's actually no one in my group, because if I print that to Drive again, open that up, there's now nobody in the group because nobody was in that OU. But I do have one user who's in a child OU. So let's run that command for the child OU. So I'm saying GAM update the group Edinburgh field trip sync not suspended users from OU and children school demo students. And this will pick up the one user that I've got in that class group that we looked at a bit earlier. You'll see that I've got that one user who's in that sub-org who appears now. So that gives you a flavor of the difference between syncing and adding. Add doesn't take away any users. Syncing removes any users who are not in your source for the sync. So let's look about getting group info. I have a group in here already called year 12. So we're going to use this command to add in that year 12 group. Just add it back into the group membership. And now I'm going to get info for that year 12 group. And what it'll do is show me the details. So I get all this information about how that year 12 group is currently configured and set up. So we'll get all this data about it. Okay, which is really useful. But down the bottom here, it shows me that year 12 group is also a member of my Edinburgh field trip group as well. What we often want to do is we want to also be able to remove users from a group. So if I want to remove a user from a group, I use this command, GAM update group, Edinburgh field trip, remove user, and then just the user's email address. So that works like this. Just pop that into Cloud Shell. I'm going to remove this user from the group. I can also remove users based on their role. I've put a little note on here which is really useful to know, is that if you use this command without specifying the role type, so you don't say owner, manager, or member at the end of it, if you use this command, it will just clear out all the members. The managers and the owners will stay untouched. So I can actually pop across the Cloud Shell, and if I type in just GAM update group, Edinburgh field trip, clear, that removes all of the members from my group. But what it doesn't do, it doesn't remove my managers or my owners. So if I print that info to Drive again and open that up, my manager is still present in the group. So that's really useful. And if I want to remove just the managers, then what I would do, jump across the Cloud Shell here, and I would just specify the role. So in this case, I want to remove all the managers. So just say update group Edinburgh field trip, clear manager. And now that will remove all the managers that I have in that group. So the last thing we probably want to know about groups is actually about how we delete them. So in order to delete a group, it's relatively straightforward. You just do GAM, delete group, and then the group email. So we're going to go and delete our Edinburgh field trip group now, which should be relatively straightforward. So we'll just jump across to Cloud Shell. I'll just put in the command GAM, delete group, Edinburgh field trip, and that group has been deleted. So that's how to master groups with GAM. I'm Charlie Love. Thanks for watching this Chrome Enterprise tutorial with apps, events, and Acer.